Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello students, this is Professor Ravin Zugade from Department of Chemistry, Rashtrasant Tukadoji Maharaj, Nagpur University, and we were discussing about transition elements with special reference to 3D series elements. In last 3 lectures, we have discussed various properties of 3D series elements like position in periodic table, electronic configuration, atomic ionic radii, ionization potential, variable oxidation states, their colors and magnetic properties. In this lecture, we will be discussing about the catalytic activities of 3D series elements, complex formation tendency, and some typical questions based on all of these topics. So this is our lecture 4, which will be the last lecture on transition series elements. So let us now focus on the 3 topics starting with catalytic activity. Now what is a catalyst? How do you define a catalyst? A catalyst is any substance which increases the rate of reaction and remains unaffected or unaffected at the end of the reaction. So it is not consumed in the reaction. It remains intact at the end of the reaction. Now why at all a catalyst can increase the rate of reaction? The reason lies in the activation energy of the reaction. We know that this type of graph is called as the energy profile diagram of a reaction. We have on x-axis the reaction progress and on y-axis the potential energy. This is the energy of the reactant molecules and this is the energy of the products. Now in between, initially we need to supply some amount of energy to the reactant molecules in order to undergo reaction and give final product. This energy is called as energy of activation or activation energy. Now higher is this activation energy, lower will be the rate of reaction. Now what this catalyst does, it provides an alternate path to the reaction and as a result the net activation energy of the reaction decreases. Since less energy is to be supplied, the rate of reaction increases. This is the fundamental function of a catalyst, is to decrease the activation energy of the reaction. Now most of the elements of first transition series, that is 3D series, they act as catalyst either in their elemental state or in the form of their compounds. The reason for this is they are very good adsorbents. Second reason is they have number of unpaired electrons, so they can undergo electron sharing with a large number of molecules, and also they have vacant d orbitals which can form a transition state or what is called as a activated complex which is having the highest energy. So it means that if you have some reactants, they can form an activated complex or transition state with the catalyst. Hence, consider this is one reactant and this is another reactant and this is the catalyst molecule or catalyst surface. Now, when these reactants come in contact with the catalyst, they are in vicinity of each other and they undergo reaction on the surface of the catalyst, and as a result the product is formed. The product leaves the catalyst surface and the surface is again ready for new molecules of the reactant, and they can again come, again react on the surface of the catalyst, form the product, and the product leave the catalyst surface. As a result, at the end of the process, the catalyst remains unaffected. The 3D series elements are used as catalysts in many reactions. A few reactions which I would like to cite over here. The first one is finely divided iron molybdenum catalyst. Now you must have heard about a process called as the Haber process. It is a process in which nitrogen and hydrogen, they react under high pressure in the presence of this particular catalyst to form ammonia gas. And this Haber process involves a reaction between gaseous nitrogen and gaseous hydrogen on the surface of finely divided FeMO catalyst. Now in this particular process, Fe acts as a catalyst, whereas molybdenum acts as a promoter. Promoter is the species which increases the activity of the catalyst. Catalyst is the species which increases the rate of reaction. So the promoter increases the efficiency of this catalyst. This is an example of the 3D series element iron used as a catalyst. Another example is finely divided nickel is used in the hydrogenation of oil. What we call it as a formation of vanaspati ghee or fat. So oil getting converted to fat. So the degree of unsaturation decreases. So more is the degree of unsaturation, it will be called as a oil. More is the degree of saturation, it will be called as a fat. So conversion of oil into fat is carried out on the surface of finely divided nickel as a catalyst, whereas nickel is a 3D series element or transition element. Another example is copper vanadium catalyst is used in the oxidation of cyclohexanol or cyclohexanone to form adipic acid. This adipic acid is required in the manufacturing of nylon 6,6, which is a synthetic fiber. Another application is of vanadium in the form of its oxide. This vanadium pentoxide is used in the conversion of sulfur dioxide to sulfur trioxide. And after this oxidation, this sulfur trioxide is converted into sulfuric acid. It means that in the manufacturing of sulfuric acid, this V2O5 is playing a key role. Another example is TiCl4. TiCl4 is used as a catalyst or as one of the components of an important catalyst which is called as a Ziegler-Natta catalyst. It is used in the polymerization of ethylene or propylene, this type of alkenes or olefins. And this 1-olefins in general, they are polymerized in the presence of Ziegler-Natta catalyst. And an important application of this Ziegler-Natta catalyst is the product which is formed is extremely specific in its structure. TiO2 is well-known catalyst or photocatalyst due to its efficient photoactivity. The reason of this TiO2 being used as a photocatalyst is the perfect energy gap between the valence band and conduction band in TiO2. It is of the order of 3.2 electron volt, which corresponds to about 415 nanometer, which is in the visible region of the spectrum. So if we supply a radiation having wavelength less than 415 nanometer, it will undergo electronic transition from valence band to conduction band, and this excited electron then can be transferred to some organic molecules like dyes, drugs, etc., and it can undergo photodegradation. Another important property of these 3D series elements is complex formation tendency. Now what is a complex? Complex is a special type of compound which contain coordinate type of bonding. What is a coordinate bond? Coordinate bond is the bond in which the two electrons which are required for bonding are donated by a single constituent. The complex which is formed between a metal ion and a ligand. What is a metal ion? Metal ion is an electron pair acceptor and ligand is an electron pair donor. It's an electron rich species. So there is a formation of complex or coordinate type of bonding between metal and ligand. You will see that this metal ion is acting as electron pair acceptor, whereas each ligand is an electron pair donor, and the bonding between this metal and ligand is coordinate type of bonding. And such type of complexes are mainly formed by the D block elements, and especially large number of complexes are formed by 3D series elements. Here this M is called as the central metal ion and L is called as the ligand. There can be one or more ligand bonded with the metal ion in the complex. Now, what are the important properties of ligand? Which species will act as a ligand? The species should have a lone pair of electron, then only it can donate that electron pair. And secondly, it should have a tendency to donate the electron pair. Similarly, central metal ion should have three important properties. It should have high positive charge because it has to accept the electron pairs. Secondly, it should have small ionic size. See, smaller is the size, more will be the attractive power of this central metal ion. And thirdly, it should have vacant orbitals to accommodate the electrons which are donated by this ligand. So ligand is an electron donor. So metal ion has to accept the electron, and for that it should have vacant orbitals. Now you have two types of metal ions, the S block metal ions or alkali and alkaline earth metal ions, and transition metal ions. If we compare the properties of these types of metal ions, you will find that S block elements show either +1 or +2 oxidation state. So there is a low positive charge, whereas the transition metal ions show variable oxidation state. We have already discussed it can show a large number of oxidation states, and as a result it has a high positive charge. Secondly, the ionic size of S block element is large because they are present on left side of the periodic table, and we know that when we go from left to right in the period, the ionic or atomic radius goes on decreasing. So largest ion is present on the extreme left of the period, that is the S block elements are the largest size metal ions, whereas the transition elements have much smaller size, and as a result the charge density is high and hence attractive power is more. Thirdly, there are no available vacant orbitals in case of S block element, but there are vacant d orbitals in case of transition metal ions. Because of this, it can accommodate the incoming electrons from the ligand. Hence, all these properties favor the formation of complex, and hence the transition metal ions and 3D series elements in special, they have a very strong tendency to form complexes. Now, according to valence bond theory, the central metal ion has to undergo hybridization, and it gives vacant hybrid orbitals. Now we know that hybrid orbitals have definite orientation in the space, and as a result the complexes have fixed geometry. For example, certain metal ions form octahedral complexes with certain ligand. Some metal ions they form square planar complexes. Some metal ions they form tetrahedral complexes. So every complex will have a definite geometry, whether octahedral, square planar, tetrahedral, and so on. And this will be governed by the type of hybridization which is involved in the central metal ion. Now we come to some typical questions based on these various topics which we have discussed in last 3.5 classes. Let us start with the first question. A simple question is, calculate spin only magnetic moment of Mn2 positive ion. Now we have discussed that there can be two types of magnetic moment, the spin magnetic moment and orbital magnetic moment. Now we have seen that 3D series elements mainly have only the spin only magnetic moment. Consider the manganese. So the electronic configuration of manganese is 3d5 4s2. Now we have to form this Mn2 positive ion. So next these two electrons are lost from 4s subshell. As a result, the electronic configuration of Mn2 positive is 3d5 4s0. And since it is 3d5, all the 5d electrons are unpaired because there are 5d orbitals and 5 electrons, and according to Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity, each orbital gets one electron and all the electrons have parallel spins. So number of unpaired electrons are equal to 5, and according to the formula of spin only magnetic moment is equal to under root of n into n plus 2, which is equal to 5 into 5 plus 2 under root, and that is equal to 5.92 Bohr magneton. This is the calculated value of magnetic moment of Mn2 positive ion, which is very close to its experimental or observed value. Let us take another question. Why copper 2 positive is paramagnetic while copper positive is diamagnetic in nature, and we will calculate the magnetic moments of these ions. So now the electronic configuration: copper positive and copper 2 positive. Now copper is having an anomalous type of electronic configuration. It is having 3d10 4s1 configuration. We have already discussed this is because of the extra stability of 3d10 configuration. So when this copper undergoes ionization, by the loss of one electron, that one electron is lost from 4s orbital, and hence it has got a 3d10 configuration. In 3d10 configuration, you can see all the electrons are paired, and since all the electrons are paired, its magnetic moment or spin only magnetic moment is 0, and hence copper positive is diamagnetic in nature. Coming to Cu2 positive ion. Now one more electron is lost. Now the next electron goes from 3d10. So now the configuration of Cu2 positive is 3d9, and in 3d9 configuration you can see there is one unpaired electron, and since there is one unpaired electron, the spin only magnetic moment is under root of 1 into 1 plus 2, which is equal to 1.73 Bohr magneton. Hence it is paramagnetic in nature. So this is a clear reason why Cu positive is diamagnetic while Cu2 positive is paramagnetic in nature. We'll take one more question. Why hydrated Cu2 positive ion is blue colored while hydrated Cu positive is colorless? Again, the answer lies in the electronic configuration. Consider the electronic configuration of Cu positive and Cu2 positive. Now Cu positive is a D10 system and Cu2 positive is D9 system. In case of D9 system, there are electrons in the lower d orbitals and there is a vacancy in the higher d orbital. We have already discussed that this type of crystal field splitting takes place in the hydrated ions. Now since it is a hydrated ion, the water molecules act as ligand, and as a result there is a splitting of d orbitals, and since there is a splitting of d orbitals, there can be dd transition provided there is electron in the lower d orbital and vacancy in the higher d orbital. In this case there are electrons as well as vacancy over here, and hence dd transition is possible. But in case of D10 configuration, all the orbitals are completely filled, and so there is no vacancy in the higher d orbital, and dd transition is not possible even if there are d electrons in the lower d orbitals. We'll take one more question. Why zinc compounds are colorless or white? Now we have seen the electronic configurations and properties of all the elements of 3D series starting from scandium to zinc, and we have seen that most of the compounds as well as complexes or the hydrated ions of these 3D series elements are generally colored in nature. But But if you remember the colors of zinc compounds, all of them or most of them are colorless. The reason again lies in the electronic configuration of zinc. Now we know that zinc is the only element in the 3D series which shows only single oxidation state, that is +2 oxidation state. And in +2 oxidation state, its electronic configuration is 3D10 because 4s electrons are lost. Hence, it is having a 3D10 configuration. And since it's a D10 configuration, again all the orbitals are completely filled and DD transition is not possible. And since DD transition is not possible, absorption will not take place in the visible region of the spectrum, and hence the compounds will be colorless in contrast to all the other ions in the transition elements. We'll see one more question. Now, if you have Cu positive ion, now Cu shows two oxidation states, copper positive and copper 2 positive. Copper positive is not known in the aqueous solution. Now, why copper positive does not exist in aqueous solution, whereas only copper 2 plus exists in the aqueous solution? Now let us see the electronic configurations. See, in case of inorganic chemistry, the answers to many questions will lie in the electronic configuration of those elements or those species. Copper is a 3D10 4s1 system. Copper positive is a 3D10 4s0 system. Now this, as soon as copper positive is formed in aqueous solution, it will undergo hydration. In general, the phenomena is called as solvation. Since water is a polar solvent, it has got a very strong tendency to undergo solvation. So ions in water medium will exist as solvated ion or hydrated ion. Similarly, as soon as copper 2 plus is formed, it will undergo hydration with D9 system, and the hydration of copper 2 positive can be shown like this. Now there are two phenomena taking place. One, this copper is undergoing ionization to form either copper positive or copper 2 positive, and secondly, this copper positive or copper 2 positive is undergoing hydration. Now, since there is higher charge on copper 2 positive, the hydration enthalpy or the hydration energy of copper 2 positive is much larger than copper positive. Now what is the hydration enthalpy? It is the amount of energy which is released when this hydration or solvation phenomena take place. Why this energy is released? Because this copper 2 positive or copper positive is a positively charged species, whereas the water molecules which are hydrating copper, they are approaching the copper with their oxygen terminal facing the copper ions. And since the oxygen is bearing partial negative charge, this is called as hydration. And in hydration, you will find that higher is the charge on the ion, more is the hydration energy or more is the hydration enthalpy. Hence, hydration enthalpy of copper 2 positive is much larger than hydration enthalpy of copper positive, and hence copper positive is less stable in aqueous solution. As a result, this copper positive has a tendency to undergo what is called as disproportionation to give copper 2 plus and elemental copper. This particular phenomena is an interesting phenomena called as a disproportionation. Disproportionation is a phenomena where an intermediate oxidation state splits into two non-adjacent oxidation states. For example, copper 1 positive splitting into 2 positive and 0. This type of disproportionation is shown by copper positive ions because it is less stable than copper 2 plus ions. We'll see one more question. From the following Latimer diagram, predict if copper positive will undergo disproportionation or not. Now, just now we have seen that copper positive has a tendency to undergo disproportionation. Now mathematically we'll try to prove this. Now this is Latimer diagram, and we know that in Latimer diagram the various species are arranged in the decreasing order of the oxidation states. So copper can exist as copper 2 positive, copper positive and elemental copper. And there are the values which are placed over here are called as the reduction potential or standard electrode potentials. Now, if copper undergoes disproportionation, the reaction can be shown as two copper positive ions. One of them is undergoing reduction to give you elemental copper and the second is undergoing oxidation to give you Cu2 positive. This is the self-redox process called as the disproportionation reaction. Now the reaction is combination of two reactions. In one reaction, this copper positive is accepting one electron, undergoing reduction and forming copper. And the E0 value for this particular reaction is given as plus 0.50 volts. The second reaction which is taking place in this disproportionation is copper positive giving you copper 2 positive plus 1 electron. Now this reaction is exactly opposite to what is shown over here. Here you have copper 2 positive giving copper positive, whereas this reaction is copper positive giving you copper 2 positive. So it's an oxidation reaction. And since it is an oxidation reaction, the oxidation potential has to be considered. And oxidation potential is equal in magnitude but opposite in sign as compared to reduction potential. So the value of reduction potential is given in the Latimer diagram. So the oxidation potential will be exactly minus 0.15. So these are the two reactions with their the electrode potentials or the reduction potentials. Now if we add these two reactions, we get the desired reaction, which is the disproportionation. And for this disproportionation reaction, if you add these E0 values, what you get is plus 0.35 volts. Since the value of this electrode potential is positive, the process is spontaneous. And if it is negative, the process is non-spontaneous. Since the value is coming out to be positive, it means that copper positive has a tendency to undergo disproportionation, forming elemental copper and Cu2 plus ions. Now, similar question can be asked about manganese in plus 6 oxidation state. Now, manganese in plus 6 oxidation state in acidic medium exists as MnO4 2 negative ion, whereas the other species like MnO4 negative in plus 7 oxidation state, MnO2 in plus 4 oxidation state, Mn3 positive in plus 3 oxidation state, Mn2 positive in plus 2 oxidation state, and elemental manganese in 0 oxidation state. These are various species. Now, if Mn6 plus has to undergo disproportionation, it will have to form MnO4 negative and MnO2. So plus 7 and plus 4. So we'll try to write down the disproportionation reaction. So now there is a transfer of one electron from here to here, but transfer of two electrons from here to here. It means that if Mn6 plus has to undergo oxidation as well as reduction, for oxidation it will give out one electron, but during reduction it has to accept two electrons. As a result, there are 3 Mn6 positive ions involved in this disproportionation reaction. Out of the 3, 2 undergo oxidation by losing one electron each, whereas one Mn6 plus accepts these 2 electrons, get converted to Mn4 positive ion. This is a disproportionation reaction of Mn6 plus. Now this reaction is again a combination of two reactions. 2 ions of Mn6 positive undergoing oxidation. The electrode potential will be twice as compared to what is given over here, but with a negative sign because it is going in the opposite direction. This is an oxidation process, and the electrode potential which is given is a reduction potential. Similarly, Mn6 plus will accept these 2 electrons, get converted to Mn4 positive, and the reduction potential is given as plus 2.26 volts. So this is oxidation potential, reduction potential. Sum of these two will be the total overall EMF of the reaction, and EMF of the reaction is coming out to be positive plus 1.14 volt. indicating that the process is spontaneous. It means that Mn6 plus will spontaneously disproportionate to Mn7 positive and Mn4 positive in acidic medium. Next question is Mn2 plus is much more resistant to oxidation than Fe2 positive. Now again the answer lies in the electronic configuration. Mn has 3d5 4s2 configuration, so Mn2 plus has 3d5 4s0 configuration. Similarly, Fe has 3d6 4s0 configuration. Now since Fe has 3d6 whereas Mn5 has 3d5, Mn2 plus has a 3d5 configuration. Now 3d5 is extra stable and 3d6 will have a tendency to get converted into extra stable 3d5. Hence this Fe will have a tendency to donate one electron. As a result, Mn2 plus is more resistant to oxidation, whereas Fe2 positive will have a tendency to undergo oxidation, thereby giving the extra stable 3d5 configuration. One more question. Why Ti3 plus and Cu2 positive have identical magnetic moment? Again the answer lies in the electronic configurations. Ti3 positive is a D1 system. It means that there is one unpaired electron in Ti3 positive. Similarly, copper 2 positive is a D9 system. It means that there is again one unpaired electron in Cu2 positive. Hence, the spin only magnetic moment because of this one unpaired electron is equal to 1.73 Bohr magneton. Now this is true for such pairs which contain equal number of unpaired electrons like D2-D8 system, D3-D7 system, D6-D4 system and so on. To summarize this particular topic, we have discussed the catalytic properties of 3D series elements. We have seen that the 3D series elements show catalytic properties, and the catalytic property can be attributed to unpaired electrons, vacant d orbitals and variable oxidation states. Similarly, we have talked about the complex formation tendency of 3D series elements. It is because of large number of complex formation. This can be attributed to ionic size, high positive charge and vacant d orbitals. And this is all about 3D series elements. Thank you very much.